I cheated on my terminally ill husband because I had needs and felt justified. He found out, vanished without a word, cut me off completely, and left me alone to face the ruins of what I did. I want to make something clear up front. People love to judge from the outside, but unless you've lived inside a marriage where illness takes over everything, you don't really understand what it does to the person who isn't sick. My husband, Michael, was diagnosed with aggressive cancer a little over 2 years ago. We were both in our late 30s, no kids yet, stable jobs, plans we assumed we had time for. One appointment turned into months of treatments, hospital stays, medications, and the constant crushing awareness that the future we'd planned was slipping away. Overnight, my life became centered around his illness. Every decision, every schedule, every conversation revolved around cancer. I became his primary caregiver almost immediately. I handled appointments, medications, insurance calls, work adjustments, emotional support, physical care when he was too weak to manage on his own. I don't say this for praise, but to explain the reality. Caregiving consumes you. There's no clocking out. There's no me time unless you actively steal it, and even then, the guilt follows you. Michael changed. I know people will say that's inevitable, and I understand that intellectually, but emotionally it still felt like abandonment. He became withdrawn, quiet, almost unreachable. Conversations stopped being conversations. Touch stopped being touch. Intimacy disappeared entirely, not just physically, but emotionally. Everything was about survival, treatment, symptoms, side effects. I felt like I became a nurse, not a wife. Before anyone twists this, I'm not saying I expected him to perform or pretend everything was fine. I'm saying that I felt invisible. I felt like my needs, my feelings, my existence outside of caregiver stopped mattering. And yes, I understand how that sounds when compared to terminal illness, but two things can be true at once. He was suffering, and so was I. I kept telling myself I could handle it, that this was temporary, that I just needed to be stronger. But over time, resentment crept in, not at him specifically, but at the situation, at the unfairness of it all. I didn't sign up to be alone in my marriage at 38. I didn't sign up to disappear as a person because my role became fixed and rigid and suffocating. This is where people will start calling me selfish, but I'm going to be honest anyway. I still had needs, emotional needs, physical needs, the need to feel wanted, desired, seen as more than a caretaker. I didn't stop being human because my husband got sick. I didn't stop needing connection because the circumstances were tragic. Jason came into the picture slowly. He's someone I knew through work and later saw occasionally at the gym. It wasn't some dramatic planned affair. It started as conversation. Easy conversation, normal conversation that didn't revolve around illness or prognosis or fear. He asked how I was doing. He laughed with me. He didn't look at me like I was fragile or exhausted or defined by tragedy. I know how that sounds. I know people will say I should have shut it down immediately, but when you've been emotionally starving, even basic attention feels overwhelming. It felt harmless at first. It felt like relief. I told myself it wasn't cheating because it wasn't physical. Then I told myself it wasn't cheating because I deserved some outlet. Then it became physical, and by that point, the line had already moved so many times that it barely felt like a line anymore. I justified it constantly. Michael couldn't meet my needs. Our marriage wasn't functioning in any real sense anymore. Life felt cruel and unfair, and I was drowning under responsibility and grief and anger. I didn't feel like I was betraying him. I felt like I was surviving. I felt like I was allowed to grasp onto something that made me feel alive when everything else felt like decay. I didn't plan to leave him. I didn't stop caring about him. I still took him to appointments. I still handled his care. I still showed up every day. In my mind, those things mattered. I wasn't abandoning him. I was compartmentalizing. Maybe that's delusional, but at the time, it felt reasonable. Michael found out. I'm not going into details about how, because honestly, that part feels irrelevant compared to what happened next. There was no screaming match, no dramatic confrontation, no emotional explosion. He found out, looked at me in a way I had never seen before, said almost nothing, and left. At first, I thought he needed space. Then I realized he wasn't coming back. He blocked my number, blocked me on email. His parents stopped responding to me. His sister told me, very bluntly, not to contact them again. I was removed from his medical proxy paperwork. Hospital staff wouldn't even speak to me. It was like I had been erased overnight. The silence was devastating. I expected anger. I expected accusations. I expected him to yell, to cry, to demand explanations. I did not expect complete erasure. It felt cruel. It felt punitive. It felt like he wanted to hurt me as deeply as possible by denying me any chance to explain myself or even say goodbye. Friends who had initially supported me started pulling away once they learned the full story. Jason distanced himself almost immediately once the reality of the fallout became clear. Suddenly, the person I had leaned on for comfort was gone too. I was left completely alone, cut off from my husband, his family, and most of my social support. What hurts the most is that people keep acting like I deserve this. Like my pain doesn't count because of what I did. I'm not saying I made perfect choices. I'm saying I was pushed to a breaking point in an inhuman situation, and instead of being met with any understanding, I was discarded without a word. Michael disappearing like that felt manipulative. Weaponizing silence felt abusive. Using his illness as a shield against any accountability for how his absence affected me feels unfair. I didn't stop being a person just because he was sick. I regret the consequences. I regret how everything exploded, but I won't pretend I didn't have reasons. I won't pretend I cheated out of malice or cruelty. I was struggling too, and no one seems willing to acknowledge that. So I need to know, is it really fair to abandon your wife entirely when she was drowning too? Or does being sick excuse emotional cruelty and complete erasure? Edit. I didn't expect this level of hostility, but a lot of you are missing the point or intentionally twisting what I said. I did not stop caring for my husband. I did not abandon him. I was still physically present, still managing his care, still making sure his treatment was handled. The affair did not interfere with his medical care in any way. Caregiver burnout is real. Anyone pretending otherwise is either lying or has never experienced it. Cheating doesn't automatically erase love, and acting like it does is simplistic and frankly naive. I never said what I did was ideal. I said it was human, and for everyone saying he owed me nothing, silence is not healthy. It's not mature. It's not kind. It's punishment. Anger would have been easier to understand than complete disappearance. I made a human mistake during an inhuman situation. If you can't grasp that, that says more about your lack of empathy than it does about my character. Update 1. A lot has happened since my last post and edit. I know many of you will read this already convinced I'm irredeemable, but I'm going to lay out what actually happened instead of letting people fill in the gaps with whatever version makes me look the worst. A few days after Michael disappeared and cut off all contact, I was served papers. No warning, no conversation, nothing. Separation filings, not even divorce yet, but formal separation with legal language that made it very clear this wasn't about cooling off or taking space. This was a hard stop. He had already retained a lawyer, and everything was being handled through them. The paperwork revoked my status as his medical proxy entirely. That part hit harder than I expected. For over 2 years, I had been the one coordinating his care, making decisions with doctors, handling medications, advocating for him when he was too weak or exhausted to do it himself. Suddenly, I was legally nobody. I had no right to information, no right to updates, no right to be involved at all. I tried going to the hospital anyway, thinking surely someone would talk to me, that there had to be some mistake. The front desk wouldn't even let me pass the check-in. They already had my name flagged. Security was polite but firm. I was told that Michael had explicitly requested I not be given access or information. Hearing that out loud, in such a clinical, impersonal way, was humiliating. It felt like being erased from my own life. His parents were the ones who took over everything. They moved him to a different facility closer to them. I found out through a mutual acquaintance, not from anyone in the family. When I tried calling his mother, she answered once just to tell me, very coldly, that I was no longer welcome in their lives and that any further attempts to contact Michael would go through their lawyer. Friends who had initially told me they understood started backing away. It wasn't dramatic, it was quiet. Messages stopped being returned, invitations stopped coming. A couple of people outright told me they couldn't defend me anymore after hearing what Michael's family was saying. Apparently the narrative being shared was that I had been cheating for months while he was fighting for his life, that I had emotionally abandoned him long before anything physical happened. I don't agree with that framing, but it spread fast. Jason completely disappeared. Once lawyers got involved and the situation stopped being abstract and emotional and started having real consequences, he was gone. No dramatic breakup conversation, just distance, excuses, and eventually silence. I'm not surprised, but it still stings to realize how quickly someone can exit when things stop being easy. Financially, things started unraveling too. With the separation filing came discussions about assets, accounts, and future obligations. Michael had already moved money, frozen shared accounts, and redirected automatic payments. I wasn't left destitute, but I was suddenly very aware of how much stability had been tied to a marriage that now effectively didn't exist. What shocked me most wasn't the legal consequences themselves, but how coordinated everything was. This wasn't an impulsive reaction. This was planned. He had time to think, to consult, to decide that complete removal was the best response. People keep calling this setting boundaries, but it feels excessive. There was no attempt at mediation, no conversation, no acknowledgement that I was part of his life for over a decade. Emotionally, I started spiraling. Not because I didn't understand that what I did was hurtful, but because the punishment felt disproportionate. I wasn't violent. I wasn't neglectful. I didn't abandon him when he was sick. I made a terrible decision in the middle of prolonged burnout and emotional isolation, and the response was total annihilation. I agreed to counseling when it was suggested, even though it felt less like a choice and more like a condition. The therapist didn't take my side the way I expected. She kept redirecting conversations back to responsibility, to impact versus intent, to the reality that caregiving does not entitle someone to violate trust. I felt invalidated. Every time I tried to explain my exhaustion, my loneliness, my needs, it was framed as context, not justification. That distinction frustrated me more than I expected. Michael agreed to a DNA test as part of the separation process, which felt absurd given the situation, but I complied. When the results came back confirming he was the father, I felt a rush of vindication that I didn't anticipate. I thought it would change something. I thought it would soften his stance or at least open a door for conversation. It didn't. Instead, his lawyer made it clear that paternity was never the core issue. Trust was. The accusation, the affair, and the sustained deception mattered more than biology. Hearing that in such blunt terms was infuriating. From my perspective, I had proven that his public and private suspicion of me had been unfounded. From his perspective, the damage was already done. That's when it finally clicked that I wasn't just defending myself against the affair anymore. I was being judged for the months of pressure, rationalization, and choices that led up to it. Every justification I had used to survive was now being used as evidence against me. The language I leaned on, burnout, needs, self-care, was being stripped of its protective meaning and reframed as entitlement. Michael, made it clear through legal channels that reconciliation was off the table, not paused, not conditional, off the table. Any future interaction would be limited to legal matters or, eventually, co-parenting logistics if he chose to pursue involvement that way. No emotional closure, no conversation, no opportunity to be heard. I feel angry about that. I still do. I feel like silence is being used as a weapon. I feel like disappearing without allowing any dialogue is its own form of cruelty. People keep telling me I'm not owed anything, but after years of partnership, after caregiving, after shared life, being cut off completely feels inhumane. At the same time, I can't ignore how alone I am now. The support I assumed would be there evaporated. The understanding I thought people would have never materialized. Instead, I'm left managing legal stress, social isolation, and the slow realization that my version of events doesn't carry the weight I thought it did. I don't regret surviving. I don't regret wanting more than a life defined by illness. Final update. Enough time has passed now that the situation has fully settled, and the silence has hardened into something permanent. This is the end of it, whether I like that or not. Michael never came back, not physically, not emotionally, not even indirectly. After update 1, the separation quietly turned into divorce proceedings, expedited on medical grounds. I didn't get a dramatic court date or a showdown. Everything was handled through lawyers and paperwork, clean and clinical. I signed documents I barely recognized my own life in, marriage dissolved, assets divided, any remaining ambiguity erased. I learned through a third party that his condition worsened faster than expected. The treatment stopped working. He moved into hospice care near his parents. I was not notified officially. I found out the same way I'd found out about everything else by then, through whispers, through people who didn't know how to tell me without sounding like they were apologizing for something they weren't responsible for. I tried once, just once, to reach out directly, not to argue, not to justify, not even to ask for forgiveness. I asked for a conversation, closure, 5 minutes, a phone call, something that would acknowledge that I existed in his life for more than a decade and didn't evaporate the moment I made a catastrophic choice. The message went unanswered. Later, his lawyer sent a short reply stating that all contact was to cease and that any further attempts would be considered harassment. That was the moment I understood that silence wasn't temporary. It wasn't a tactic. It was the decision. When he died, I wasn't told. Not by his parents, not by his siblings, not by anyone who had once called me family. I found out from a coworker who had seen an online obituary. I wasn't mentioned, not as a wife, not as an ex-wife, not as anything, just absent. The funeral was private, immediate family only. I didn't try to go. I'm not delusional. I knew what would happen if I showed up. Still, knowing I wasn't even given the option hurt in a way I don't think people fully grasp unless they've lived it. It wasn't just grief, it was erasure. Like the years we spent together were being actively scrubbed from the record. People will read this and say, "What did you expect?" I understand that reaction. Intellectually, I get it. Emotionally, I still think the punishment exceeded the crime. I'm allowed to think that. I'm allowed to feel that disappearing without a word is its own kind of violence, even if it was legally clean and socially justified. Jason is gone. Completely. He didn't attend anything. He didn't reach out after the death. He didn't offer comfort or closure or even a hollow apology. He exited the moment the situation became real and irreversible. That part no longer surprises me. If anything, it clarified how uneven the stakes always were. Most of my friends are gone too. Some faded quietly. Others made it explicit that they didn't want to be involved in drama or ethical gray areas. A few told me outright that they couldn't reconcile what I did with who they thought I was. That's their right. I'm not begging anyone to stay. Michael's family has cut all contact. His parents blocked me on everything. His sister sent one final message telling me that I was not welcome to reach out again and that any grief I felt should be processed elsewhere. It was cold. It was deliberate. It was final. I've had a lot of time to sit with what people online kept insisting I wouldn't face, consequences that don't come with redemption arcs. There was no moment where accountability magically reopened doors, no apology that softened hearts, no acknowledgement that caregiving fatigue or emotional isolation earned me compassion. Those explanations mattered to me. They didn't matter to anyone else. I still don't accept the narrative that I am some cartoon villain who delighted in cruelty. I didn't cheat because I wanted to hurt him. I cheated because I was drowning and made a selfish decision to breathe. That distinction matters to me, even if it doesn't matter to anyone reading this. I won't pretend I was operating from pure malice just to make the ending cleaner, but I also won't pretend that I was abandoned out of nowhere. He didn't disappear in a vacuum. He left after trust was broken in a way that couldn't be repaired on his timeline, not mine. He chose silence over confrontation, distance over dialogue, and control over chaos. I think it was cruel. I also understand why he did it. What I still struggle with is the idea that closure is something only the wounded party gets to decide. I believe silence can be weaponized. I believe disappearing is a choice, not a neutral act. I believe that being terminally ill doesn't automatically make every response virtuous. Those beliefs haven't changed, and I'm not going to pretend they have just to appear enlightened. At the same time, I've had to accept that my beliefs don't obligate anyone else to engage with me. I can think the silence was punitive. I can think I deserved a conversation. I can think the cutoff was excessive. None of that changes the outcome. There is no reconciliation coming. There never was. Michael made sure of that before he died. His family is honoring that boundary completely. The chapter is closed whether I feel finished with it or not. If you're looking for a redemption ending, this isn't it. I didn't get forgiven. I didn't get absolved. I didn't get to be seen as complex instead of monstrous. I got consequences, isolation, and a lifetime of knowing that one decision redefined how I will be remembered by the people who mattered most. I was abandoned, not left. I still believe that, and I can accept that believing it doesn't change a damn thing.